Good afternoon and welcome to the show. I'm Jennifer Knoll.
And I'm Shelby. Today on the Educator's Bookshelf, we will be discussing the book Freedom Writers. Teacher 150 teens who's ready to change themselves and the world around them.
So just a brief overview of the book for those of you that haven't read it. In the fall of 1994, one up-and-coming teacher, Miss Erin Gruwell, decided to take on a freshman class termed Troubled and Not Worth the Effort at a high school in Long Beach, California. These troubled students were convinced that this fresh teacher would not last a month and they would be back to the same routine of not having a steady teacher. Little did these students know that this was no ordinary teacher, but she was out to prove to these students and to anybody that doubted them that any student from any background can succeed.
Nicely said. These high-risk students thought this class was a joke, didn't put any effort into it. Very, very disrespectful to Miss Gruwell. All of them were expected to fail and drop out of school. Most of the teachers would just sit in the teacher's lounge, and they actually violated standards by talking badly about these students behind their back. Almost all of them came from low income, horrible family life, and they're exposed to way too much at such a young age.
And at the same time, nobody in their family has made it to college or graduated from college, so it was a goal for each one of them to make it to that level.
Exactly.
So upon reading the book, we've come up with just some key highlights of maybe some possible negative aspects to the book and some positive things to take away from it.
There were more positives than negatives.
Oh, without a doubt.
But there were some negatives that would be trips. They went to Washington, D.C. to see the Secretary of Education, Richard Riley, one time to present. This was at the end. They presented all 150 entries to him. So they were very specially treated. Miss Gruwell bent over backwards for her students. Way backwards.
It makes all teachers need to go above and beyond to help their students succeed.
The question might arise of, can a teacher do this in her life, balance school life and her personal life to this extent? A teacher can only do so much for her student, and Miss Gruwell tried to become the parent figure and the teacher figure.
But
she tried to do it all. She spent way too much of her time, we feel like, on these students.
But in real life,
Go over. So a few concerns did arise in this book. It became very, very redundant. Same topics were just kind of back to back in these journal entries. All 150 students had 2 or 3 pages that they could write a main story that impacted their lives.
it made it feel like all the journal entries were individual. Each student put one journal entry into this math book, but it made it seem that the students were actually writing more.
Exactly. We never knew if it was a girl or boy entry because everybody wanted to make sure that it stayed anonymous so they could put their true feelings out there, which I totally agree with, But we want to know for perspective-wise if it was a girl or boy, and we never knew that.
We couldn't judge that just based on that they wrote I.
Exactly. Miss Gruwell's class we felt was specially treated.
Was a drastic problem for her because it ultimately led to her.
She actually got a divorce with her husband in real life. In the book, it never says anything about this, but I was researching a little bit on the internet, and she really did get divorced from her husband because she made her school life her personal life. Okay? Some other questions that might arise from reading this book are, is there such a thing as go too far, as Jen mentioned earlier? And where should we as teachers draw them? Does she push her boundaries?
Yes. Now we're going to flip to the positive aspects of the book, and like we mentioned before, there was an abundance of these, and it's pretty hard for us to try to find anything negative.
Exactly.
So on the positive side, you could say that these students, without a doubt, did not hold back in their writing because it was anonymous. They were free to write graphically about problems that happened and the situations that they were thrown into. And they did this to get that out there and to portray these problems so that other students and readers can see what they went through. Another thing is that this was just not an English class for these students. it was a family. They were all excited to be there. When somebody was missing, they were all worried and wondering, you know, what happened to them. Is something wrong? They cared so much for each other that they were a family, and they worked together to help put a stop. A stop is kind of, you know, pushing it, but more of a speed bump to gang violence, to drugs, to abuse, just all the obstacles that were thrown at them. And Miss Gruwell, she cared so much for them that she made it clear that there was nothing that she wouldn't do for them, or at least try to do for them to help them succeed. And she's just an outstanding example that becoming a teacher is not an 8 to 5 job. You can't show up when the students show up, and you can't leave with them. It takes a lot of extra effort to succeed as a good teacher. And her success was so apparent when she stated in one of her entries that upon the time that her students graduated, every single one of them made it there. Every single one graduated.
And most of these kids that graduated were the first generation of their family to graduate, which was amazing, very cool.
So upon reading the book, now kind of our little personal preference, is this something that teachers and just anybody should go out and buy and put on their own bookshelf?
I agree. I think every person who cares about people, cares about children, needs to read this book. So I give it a 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, I would just absolutely agree with Shelby. The book is outstanding, deserves, if I could give more thumbs, I would. But I believe that it's a great book for teachers to purchase for their own bookshelf, because it shows that the struggles that these students went through and how one teacher helped them and brought in so many resources for them to succeed and to get out of these problems. And so other teachers could use this as a resource to look into if these kind of struggles are thrown at them with their students.
I'd have to agree with every word Jen says, but I'd also like to add that it gets one excited about education. After reading this, it's just like,
Without a doubt.
man, I really want to be a teacher now. This is really cool.
So, I say it's a great book to buy.
I do too.
So, well, that's our show. So we encourage you to go out there and buy the book. We believe you will truly, truly love it, and you will enjoy it for years and years to come.
So until next time on the Educator's Bookshelf, I'm Shelby Nesbitt.
And I'm Jennifer Knoll.
Have a good day.